All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Thursday, December 28th, 2017. And this is Before the First Cup with Jules here on UCY.TV. Happy Thursday, everyone. It is a frigid 2 degrees with a real feel of minus 13 here in upstate New York. So where do we leave off yesterday? We titled the show Self-Replicating National Nano Initiative, nano everywhere, gray goo, and DNA nanobots. We've spent the last few days looking at nanotechnology with Robert Freitas, looking at medical nanotechnology, as well as Eric Drexler, looking at desktop molecular manufacturing. And I'm going to make a little bit of a turn from the nanotechnology today because we've dug pretty deep in there. Today we're going to go back to our old favorite, and that is going to be artificial intelligence, and maybe looking a little at the brain and some of the merging that is happening between the brain and machine. There was a story that came out of The Hindu. Gotta love The Hindu. And there's a lot of good stuff, actually, that comes out of India about technology. This is the HinduBusinessLine.com. Tech got too smart this year. This is a look back at 2017. The year of 2017 has seen some stunning advances in technology, and if you've listened to the show, you have joined us for all the horrors. It is not about gadgets and gizmos, but really about software, which has evolved to form what now can be called intelligence. The breakthroughs made in technology this year are enough to change human society and perhaps even existence, just as electricity changed everything in 1879 and the invention of the light bulb. And they keep mentioning that how artificial intelligence is going to be as important as electricity, so look out. As impressive as progress in technology may be, it is now beginning to sink in that it is more of a double-edged sword than we ever knew, unless, of course, you listen to Before the First Cup, being able to do as much harm as potential good. How much of humankind has shot itself in the foot, and what it has created will unfold over the next few years, and this time it isn't just hype, but a world condition in which, quote, big tech, unquote, holds sway and determines everything, including who wins an election. Oh, yes. Make sure you push that button again. There was a time when you could unplug or avoid opting for technology usage, but now it is too late because it impacts every life, and it is so interwoven in everything we do. And as we launch 5G across the continent of Africa, even the Africans out in the bush, the Bushmen, won't be able to get away from it. Technology has gone beyond just being an aid, and it has begun to define the way we live our lives and interact with others. But this is how it played out in 2017. How clever it was to create something that can be smarter than its creators, well, we'll know someday. Yeah, not a good idea. But meanwhile, artificial intelligence, a term that has resonated throughout the years, is starting to show that it needs very little human help anymore. We have read about that. Google's DeepMind has been doing all kinds of things without any human intervention. Google's AlphaGo defeated a world champion at the complex Chinese game of Go last year. But just this past October, AlphaGo Zero, which was the next evolution, demonstrated that it would startle the world by teaching itself the game right from scratch. The program played millions of games against itself to learn the rules and even becoming inventive with them, and no one can win against Zero. And more importantly, we now need to ponder what will happen when a supercomputer can learn 3,000 years of human knowledge in just 40 days and then surge past it. Practically every tech company wants into the AI action now. Wherever it fits or it doesn't, it is stuffed into products and services. And AI is supposed to be making first strides in knowing what humans are doing, where they are, what they are feeling, and what they want to do next. And those are some of the things that we have looked at. And all this data being gathered goes to pushing more services and messages at us, and it probably is also getting stored somewhere in the cloud. On the other hand, artificial intelligence is helping do all kinds of things in healthcare, agriculture, and other industries that have never before been possible. Just take one example. Thousands of images of skin problems can be shown to an intelligent system which will go through them at volumes and speeds no human can do to match a disease to an image. And if so far we thought that creativity was strictly the domain of human beings, we can think again. AI has been used to create music, write stories, paint like master artists, and compose songs. And don't listen to any of that AI music. I played a clip one time that was embedded in a story, and it made me feel kind of weird. So don't do it. We found out they can flip all kinds of switches in the brain with lights and sound and ultrasonic tweets. Just don't do it. The results are sometimes astounding, but it can go often quite wrong, such as in this Christmas carol, "Heart fond to be the wrong." I don't know. And it just goes on and on and on. So let's look who's human. Closely tied to research in AI is the field of robotics, which puts together machines and knowledge into a near-human android that can live with us and apparently make our life better. And yes, feed us grapes. Sophia was a pretty robot that went to the United Nations, and she was granted full citizenship in Saudi Arabia. Engineers like their robot creations so much that they want to marry them. We read about those as well. And have children with them. Well, we read about that one too. Textile, that is. But the bigger the impact of robotics has been on jobs, present and future, the industry is beginning to automate wherever it can to save on costs and resources, with the unhappy result that many jobs stand to disappear. But don't worry about it. We got universal basic income for everybody. Experts say, don't worry. New jobs will come through, and robots are meant to work alongside people, not against it. Meanwhile, robots are taking up positions at restaurants to serve customers, wearing legal garb to fight court cases, picking up brush to become art restorers, and getting in front of the camera to read news. Voices are being raised in protest, urging governments and businesses to step on the brakes and form policies to allow such technology to advance responsibly and ethically. But with robots quickly becoming quite human and self-aware and creating their own knowledge and drawing deductions, it is more than high time. Artificial intelligence and big data is also at the heart of all the assistants that are beginning to populate our lives. I hope none of you out there got an Alexa or a Google Assistant for Christmas, because if you did, flush it down the toilet. Alexa, Google Assistant, Siri, Cortana, and Bixby are all ready to listen and respond and track, of course. Yes. And with leaps forward in natural language processing, machine perception, and learning, the assistants and their similar cousins, and that would be the chatbots, know more about people than one can fathom. The year has gone by to see virtual assistants being built into home speakers like Amazon's Echo and similar products from Google and Apple, and they will only gain skill and power over the next year. A combination of new technologies are ensuring that the reality we know is changing. And when you message a company to complain about some product, you won't know whether it is a real person responding or a chatbot, or the point where the bot hands it over to an actual human. When you see a piece of news somewhere online or forwarded on WhatsApp or appearing on Facebook or Twitter, you won't know whether or not the news is fake. Of course you won't. And just about everyone, remember, this is this mixing of reality and fantasy to confuse everybody so you don't know who to trust. And just about everyone has ended up believing that news that never happened because there is no way to tell any longer. Machine learning can lip sync over videos, making people look as if they said things they never really did. And we looked at some of that. And AI can change so much about a video that a person can be placed somewhere that he and she or she definitely was not. And on top of that, other realities are being developed so that the human brain can get a nice and mixed up feeling about how to respond when it sees real versus virtual reality, augmented or mixed reality. How far will these things go in 2018 and beyond will change the way that we live. Guys, that is where we are going. Our mixed up future reality, where you can't even trust your own five senses anymore. And that's what they want. They want to be able to slip and slide this into our lives to manipulate and control us by having us interact and anthropomorphize these things, not sure whether or not They are thinking machines, feeling machines. At some point in the future, we are going to accept them as one of our own, and that is the Trojan horse. All right, now this came out of a Canadian publication called the Globe and Mail. Globe editorial, Do Androids Dream? Well, just ask them. Published 17 hours ago. Let's face it, 2017 has been rough on the science fiction industry from an intellectual property standpoint. The pilfering has been rampant from what the American government has plagiarized from old X-Files scripts, and various robot and drone makers flagrantly lifting from the pages of Philip K. Dick novels. For instance, Dubai started testing passenger-carrying drones this year and plans to set up an aerial taxi service. The flying cars were foretold in Blade Runner, which was a movie based on Mr. Dick's novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and could go into production as early as next year. We talked about those as well. Speaking of Blade Runner, it is not hard to see traces of filmmaker Ridley Scott's long-standing fascination with the aesthetic conception of sentient humanoids when one looks at Sophia, which is the Hong Kong-designed robot that this year became the first android in history to be granted full citizenship of a country. Yeah, 2017 has been a whacked-out year. Sure, that country was Saudi Arabia, and that was unmistakably a publicity stunt. But the fact is, humanity is giving passports to machines now, and human politicians are no longer entities speaking in robotic, suspiciously scripted sentences only. And yet, Sophia's passport even wasn't the most jaw-dropping development involving a robot this year. That distinction belonged to Atlas, which was the faceless humanoid robot built in the United States, and you probably know it as the backflipping robot, or the real scary one. Videos of Atlas hopping over obstacles and then sticking in a rear somersault with the ease of an Olympic gymnast has been viewed by millions of times on YouTube and other platforms, and it is astonishing footage for anyone old enough to remember when RoboCop was just a few hours of light entertainment. And I think in so many words, this author is saying exactly what I have. Technology is not fun anymore. We kind of crossed that line a while ago. I think we are in a new robotic age now, says science journalist Paul Miller for The Verge. There was a time before Atlas when robots were for factories, bomb disposal, vacuuming, and occasional gimmicks, but none of the useful ones were humanoids. Now we are living in an era where humanoid robots are apparently as agile as we are. Apparently, indeed, perhaps 2018 will see progress on the next logical advance, which is to find ways to power humanoid robots autonomously and efficiently without tethering them to power cables or weighing them down with batteries that quickly wear out. Right? Wouldn't want that. The ability of humans to operate for an entire day on a cheeseburger, a coffee, and a glass of water remains our sole competitive advantage for now. How disturbing is that? Our sole competitive advantage against the machine right now is that we can live on a cheeseburger, a coffee, and a glass of water to power us for an entire day. It's pretty pathetic. The leap in robotics is as much a software phenomenon as one of hardware, and some of the boldest advances are being made in artificial intelligence. It was a huge year for AI, including in Canada. According to several private sector analyses, 2017 set a new record for capital investment in Canadian artificial intelligence, and the flagship announcement came this fall when Facebook set up a research institute in Montreal that hopes to one day be home to 30 scientists. I think that's the one that might be working on that smart city along the Great Lakes coast there. Indeed, Quebec and Ontario have become global hubs for AI, helped along by our tax dollars, and perhaps that investment will pay off in time for super agile, intelligent humanoid robots that will help repel the future alien invasion. Yeah, the future alien invasion, the one that Werner von Braun warned about. Yes, you heard that right, and we didn't talk about this, and I really have not had time to dig into any of this because I kind of wrote it off a long time ago. It is a mystery how the world could be talking about anything other than the New York Times' recent revelations about a dormant U.S. Department of Defense UFO program. The details are startling. The program is video captured by fighter pilots of unidentified flying ships, which the pill-shaped objects move agilely at high speed with apparently no means of propulsion. The program has also collected alloy samples that were recovered from unidentified aerial phenomenon, according to the Times. And I don't know about that. I didn't read any of that, guys, and I'm going to tell you what, I still think it's all a psyop. I don't know, maybe they were here and they said, oh, these people are going to destroy themselves, so let's leave them alone. But we are on that path. So anyway, everything is fine, people. Don't worry about that. So then I came across a meme this morning that made me laugh, and it was two pictures, one attached to the other. One was a woman in black and white on an old school telephone, biting her thumbnail, looking very worried, and it said, people in the 60s, and she's talking on the phone. It says, I better not say that or the government will wiretap my house. And people today, and here's a woman with an Alexa, hey, wiretap, do you have a recipe for pancakes? Because, we're inviting it into our houses. Now, why do I bring that up? Because Amazon, for those of you who maybe don't know about any of this, I've spoken about this before, Amazon has had partnerships, this has been going on for quite a while, with the Central Intelligence Agency. Here's a story out of 2014, 3 years ago, out of The Atlantic, theatlantic.com, the details about the CIA's deal with Amazon. A $600 million computing cloud built by an outside company is a radical departure for the risk-averse intelligence community. The intelligence community is about to get the equivalent of an adrenaline shot to the chest. This summer, July 2014, a $600 million computing cloud developed by Amazon Web Services for the Central Intelligence Agency over the past year will begin servicing all 17 of those agencies that make up the intelligence community. If the technology plays out as the officials envision, it will usher in a new era of cooperation and coordination, allowing agencies to share information and services much more easily and avoid the kind of intelligence gaps that preceded, of course, September 11th. For the very first time, of course they had to invoke that, for the very first time, fear and alarm, agencies within the intelligence community will be able to order a variety of on-demand computing and analytic services from the CIA and the National Security Agency, and what is more, they will only pay for what they use, and it will all be back-ended by Amazon. Oh, nice. Amazon that has Alexa in your home for Christmas. This vision was first outlined in the Intelligence Community Information Technology Enterprise Plan, championed by Director of National Intelligence James Clapper and the Intelligence Chief Information Officer Al Tarisic almost 3 years ago. Cloud computing is one of the core components of the strategy to help the intelligence community discover, access, and share critical information in an era of seemingly infinite data. For the risk-adverse intelligence community, the decision to go with a commercial cloud vendor is a radical departure from business as usual. In 2011, while private companies were consolidating data centers in favor of the cloud, and some civilian agencies began flirting with the cloud variants like email services, sometimes contentious debates occurred among the intelligence community leadership. And as one former intelligence official with knowledge of the Amazon deal told Government Executive, which is a publication, it took a lot of wrangling, but it was easy to see the vision if you laid it all out. The critical question would be, would the intelligence community, led by the CIA, attempt to do cloud computing from within, or would it buy this innovation? Money was a factor, according to the intelligence official, but not a leading one. The government was spending more money on information technology than ever before. Its IT spending reached $8 billion in 2013. And now we are really looking at the mission and the innovation, says the former intelligence official. The goal was, can we act like a large enterprise in the corporate world and buy the thing that we don't have to catch up on the commercial cycle? And anybody can build a data center, but could we purchase something better? So we decided that we needed to buy some innovation. Oh, yes. And so Amazon took the deal. So anyway, in early 2013, after weighing bids from Amazon Web Services, IBM, and an unnamed third vendor who didn't want their name in this article, the CIA awarded the contract to Amazon Web Services up to $6 million over a period of 10 years. And the deal, handled in secret, of course, was first reported in March 2013, sending ripples through the tech industry. as it should. The tech industry was never part, at least officially, of the intelligence apparatus, but it has become very apparent to me, first with Microsoft and Billy Gates handing the keys over to the Justice Department right after September 11th to make that nasty antitrust lawsuit go away. And Facebook, of course, that is another CIA NSA law enforcement tool to be able to get profiles on everyone. Behavioral analytics, remember, that's a big thing. And now Amazon, a month after the deal became public, IBM filed a bid protest that was upheld in June, forcing the CIA to reopen bids to both companies for a contract. And after a legal struggle between Amazon and Big Blue, the lawsuit filed against the federal government in 2013 by Amazon Web Services, they claim that it was a flawed decision. And in October, the U.S. Court of Federal Claims sided with Amazon and overturned the decision to force the CIA to rebid the contract. So IBM went home. Amazon Web Services claimed victory in the original financial specs, and nearly 18 months after procurement was released, the CIA and Amazon went to work. It is difficult to underestimate the cloud contract's importance, and in a recent public appearance, CIA Chief Information Officer Douglas Wolf called it one of the most important technology procurements in recent history, with ramifications far outside of the realm of technology. Right? Of course it is. We're going to take a few months to bring this online in a robust way, but it is coming, he says, and I think it is going to make a big difference for national security. So now we have plants in all of your homes with your smart appliances and devices. So where does that go? Amazon Web Services. This is another story now by BusinessInsider.com. November 20th, 2017, just over a month ago, Amazon is launching a quote-unquote secret cloud service for the CIA. So it actually took a while. Amazon's Web Services, the retail market-leading cloud computing arm, introduced on Monday a so-called secret region, which was a service designed for the CIA and other intelligence agencies. The secret region isn't quite as secret as the name implies. The secret in its name just means that it is qualified to host software and data that are classified to the secret level, which is right below top secret. That makes Amazon Web Services more applicable to intelligence agencies, which regularly deal with sensitive information. Think about this. They could also probably get access to all of your purchasing habits. Now with Amazon movies and stuff, not only the books you buy and the survival gear you buy, but also the movies that you watch. This secret region will be just one among many regions on Amazon that it operates as part of its Amazon Web Services supercomputing cloud. The largest Amazon Web Services region is on the U.S. East, which is in a facility in Northern Virginia. Yes, right where all the intelligence agencies are and government federal military agencies. And when East 1 goes down, all the apps that rely on it start to struggle, causing outages. Amazon has already offered up a top secret region since 2014, and that service is a cloud offering Amazon built specifically for the U.S. intelligence community. That's the one we just read about. It's part of a $600 million deal. But this new secret region is an extension of that very same Amazon CIA arrangement. Oh, so they expanded the deal. How awesome is that? The key difference, so anybody who's got an Alexa in their homes, I'm telling you, unplug it now. The key difference is that this secret region will be available to non-intelligence government agencies, assuming that they file the right paperwork. The government and Amazon are promoting this new service as a way for U.S. intelligence communities to modernize their infrastructure and get more quickly into the information and get it to the appropriate people. The deal underlines Amazon's leadership in the cloud market and also their collaboration with the intelligence agencies, I would say. And the retailer famously beat out IBM for the CIA deal in the first place. And all the while, Microsoft also offers secret-level services to intelligence communities, but it does not have top-secret cloud, which means that Amazon can boast both. And if you remember, Microsoft had their cybercrime division where they were working with global law enforcement to track down the hackers who were stealing Nana's banking passwords. So that is the end of that story. So now let's take a step further. 19 hours ago, out of a publication called AndroidAuthority.com, Google's voice AI is more human than ever before. Oh, I think we should get happy now. You've watched movies like The Terminator or iRobot and considered that artificial intelligence potentially portrays something that is a far cry from our current technologies. But after investigating a recently published Google research paper via Quartz, it looks like we may be closer to this reality than you might think. The paper is titled Natural Text-to-Speech Synthesis by Conditioning WaveNet on MEL Spectrogram Predictions, and it highlights a new Google text-to-speech system called the Tacotron2, which is capable of a near-human level of AI voice reproduction. Yeah, so if you couldn't believe what you were hearing before, you're not going to believe it now. To achieve this, the Tacotron, Tacotron, like Tacotron, the Tacotron2 uses a pair of neural networks, one to create a visual representation of the specific audio frequencies, and a second called a WaveNet to recreate this visual data as sound. Google launched a website alongside the paper to show off what this tech could do, and Google provides examples of how Tacotron2 handles phrase semantics, like distinguishing between a noun and a verb of present, intonation, and difficult words that might trip some of us humans up, like orlaryngology, like me. And in the last section, Google provides a side-by-side example of a human voice alongside the AI, and with, to my ear, outstanding results. And in most cases, I struggle to identify the computer-generated voice. While not explicitly stated in the research, this voice technology may just be a part of Google's much broader mission of making its digital assistant, which is Google Assistant, more conversational. If I'm not mistaken, that is some of the technology that Kurzweil works on, is natural language processing. Google Assistant is the AI behind Google Home products that the company is currently pushing, and it is an area where this technology would naturally fit. Google Assistant is certainly more efficient than it has ever been, but this research indicates that it could be even more soon and even more than humans. And of course, there's still a vast gap between AI that can read aloud like a real person and an AI that can converse like a real person, where the nuance of personality and unpredictability of conversations plays critical roles. But with developments like this, AI, such as the one that Scarlett Johansson portrayed in the movie Her, might not be far off. And whatever that means for humanity. Yeah, it means that we are in deep shit trouble, people. All right, so is technology about to decimate white-collar work? I was just reading a whole thing about interactive voice response before the show today, and that is something that the company I used to work for spent a lot of time developing, and a good friend of mine was an interactive voice response engineer, spent many years working on phone systems and building the algorithms that would do interactive voice response when you would call a company and it would ask you to press one or say something and it would respond to you. And some of these voice activated systems like the Google Home are taking the place of call centers. And those were some pretty decent paying jobs for doing customer service. So is technology about to decimate white collar work? Well, Kei-Fu Lee, who is the former head of Google research in China and a top tech investor, sees a huge opportunity to automate routine office work. Kei-Fu Lee, one of China's best-known technologists and inventors, thinks artificial intelligence is about to supplant many millions of the country's office workers. This replacement is happening right now, and it is happening in a true, complete decimation, Lee told a conference at MIT last week. And this story was from November of 2017. In my opinion, the white-collar workforce gets challenged first, and then the blue-collar workforce later. Lee points to several of the investments made by his company, Shinovation Ventures, as a clear sign of how routine office work is already being transformed by AI. For example, Lee has backed Smart Finance Group which is a company that uses machine learning to determine a person's eligibility for a payday loan. Sinovation also has invested in companies that automate customer service, training, and other routine office services. There's plenty of reason to take notice of Lee's warning. Before becoming an investor, he created Microsoft's research lab in China, and he became the founding president of Google China in 2019. And I just saw recently that Google is now opening their AI office again in China after shutting it down a while ago. And in the 1980s, Lee also did groundbreaking technical work at Carnegie Mellon University on voice recognition using machine learning. As a venture capitalist, he perhaps has a strong incentive to emphasize the likely impact of AI, but his perspective on China is also important, given enormous investment his government is making in AI and the potential for young industries to be disrupted, even in China. Lee identified 4 distinct but non-sequential waves of AI. The first wave is being fueled right now by the availability of large quantities of labeled data. This has given big internet companies, both in China and in the U.S., an advantage in building their businesses and cementing their AI expertise. But the second wave, which is more relevant to the kind of workplace disruption Lee sees coming, is based on the availability of company data, especially in industries such as law and accounting. Law firms might need fewer paralegals, for instance, if machines can quickly and efficiently search through thousands of documents in researching a case. And we've looked at some of that. They've already been implemented at a couple different law firms. And a third wave relies on companies generating data through new products or apps, or for paying for it to be created. This fourth wave, then, still some way off, would bring fully automated services such as self-driving cars and robotic helpers. AI applied to different domains will be turned into products which will generate phenomenal value using your information to make bazillions of dollars, of course. So where is that going to leave us? Well, that's going to leave us with universal basic income. Scotland just announced yesterday that it is starting its own universal basic income experiment in 2018. Living in the Scottish cities of Glasgow, Edinburgh, Fife, and North Ayrshire may soon receive an unconditional monthly sum as part of the series of a universal basic income pilot currently being explored with support from the local government. Although still in its infancy and rife with controversy, the idea has already attracted nearly $334,500 of public funding in the form of a grant to develop feasibility studies. These cities involved have until late March of 2018 to submit their bids, and in a world where jobs are being increasingly taken over by machines, leaders have started to recognize that the welfare safety net will also need to change. Advocates of universal basic income believe that the unconditional offer of a regular, though tiny, little sum of money could help many get back on their feet and even encourage them to invest in new business ideas. Yeah, I bet. This is just crazy, guys. We are writing ourselves out of the equation is what this is coming down to. And as this increases on a daily basis and we keep developing this type of stuff, we have AI getting into every facet of our lives. We are trying to mimic the human brain. We are getting it into our children's heads. We are addicting the youth of tomorrow to these devices so they can't ever give it up. It is being integrated so deeply into the economy and into the way things work that there will never be a way to detangle artificial intelligence from the way things work in the future. And that is the key to all this. Being able to turn off the machine is something that is no longer an option. That is where it gets dangerous. However, people from both sides of the political aisle have engaged in the proposal, which would cost money up front, but it could deliver important savings by replacing unemployment benefits. Speaking at a conference of economists, Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, said, "It might not turn out to be the answer, but it might not turn out to be feasible either. But it might turn into be feasible either. But as work changes as rapidly as it is, I think it is really important that we are prepared to be open-minded about the different ways that we can support individuals to participate fully in our new economy and buy our new devices that we need to commercialize to be able to keep this all going." Scotland is not the first country to consider universal basic income. In 2017, you saw a number of experiments being rolled out all over the world, as well as in Kenya, Finland, Canada, and California, among others. California's efforts are spearheaded by the Silicon Valley's largest startup accelerator, Y Combinator, which is in the process of launching a large-scale study based on the findings of a small-scale trial conducted last year in Oakland. Combinator's president, Sam Altman, tweeted, "In a world where technology eliminates jobs, it would mean that the cost of having a great life goes down a lot, but without something like basic income, it won't. I don't think we can really have equality of opportunity." So while Y Combinator is supported by wealthy investors, governments are under greater scrutiny when it comes to spending taxpayer money. Finland's experiment, which was rolled out in 2017, earned praise around the world, but it also had its fair share of critics, and the scheme was described as a little more than a publicity stunt, and its design was labeled as just a form of unconditional unemployment benefits, which is pretty much what it's going to be. And as the world of work evolves, both private giants and governments are reflecting on the future of public welfare, and universal basic income is an appealing idea. But the question remains whether money spent this way will actually benefit the poor, and how do we make this idea work in practice? And amidst the controversy, Scotland will be the place to watch in 2018 as governments grant winners, and we will all set out to find the answers. And, you know, the thing is about this, remember, there is no free lunch. I've told you that before. And if you're going to get universal basic income, they are also going to want to make sure that you do not spend that money on drugs and alcohol. And in order to do that, you're going to have to take your smart pill or have your smart dust inserted to be able to monitor your health 24/7. Make sure you don't do anything that wastes that taxpayer and government money. So how does AI impact the education of the future? I told you schools are unconditionally giving children, even as young as 11 years old, notebook computers with which they have to interact with on a daily basis, pushing that dopamine button, getting them addicted without giving them any rules or regulations to be able to groom them properly on the use of technology in their daily lives. So how AI impacts children, this is out of Forbes.com. What was the date on this? December 27th, 2017. This author, Adrian Schmidt, often tries to switch the lens, imagining themselves as a doctor or a professor in order to understand the potential of their own products. Artificial intelligence is a perfect example of how something could be used to change every aspect of our lives when we change that lens. The education is an area that has unlimited potential to utilize innovation, the ability to tap into new technologies, and yes, unfettered brains to enhance and accelerate the learning process, and it can streamline everything from admissions to grading to student access to vital resources. One of the simplest but impactful things that AI can do for education space is to speed up the administrative process, both for institutions and educators. And this tedious process of grading homework, oh my God, that's like one of your main jobs as a teacher. Evaluating essays and measuring student response can require valuable time from lecturers and teachers who prefer to focus on their lesson planning and one-on-one time with students, right? So machines are already capable of automating the grading process for multiple choice fill-in-the-blank tests, and soon they will also be able to assist and eventually replace human grading for written responses as well. Admission processes can also be streamlined and improved, reducing the workload for high-volume admission offices and automating the process of paperwork and support for students with common admission questions via chatbots and interactive web materials can improve both the process for administrators and future students. Right, so more like in a college setting. But outside of the classroom, very recently, students were forced still to rely on their teachers and parents who have limited time and availability when assistance was needed. Tutoring and additional educational support couldn't be guaranteed at all, and for socioeconomic levels. And through AI, though, tutoring and study programs are growing more advanced, capable of teaching fundamentals to students who are struggling with basic concepts. So just hand it all over to the machine. Parents, you don't need to do anything anymore. And teachers, we don't need to call you teachers. You could be facilitators. Already, there are intelligent tutoring systems such as Carnegie Learning that use data to provide feedback and work directly with students. These tools are designed to support teachers and tutors' approaches to student difficulties, but it will soon be more advanced and capable of providing specific details for students as well. In the future, visual and dynamic learning channels outside of the classroom will not only become more prevalent, but capable of supporting a large range of learning styles while also profiling you, while also addressing common questions and concerns that students have that cannot be readily answered by teachers, TAs, tutors, or parents. So make sure you depend on that machine for all your answers, because someday in the future, we are also going to have an AI God that is going to be benevolent, that will have all the answers to the questions of life. And when you depend on that machine, you will become addicted to that machine. Well, guess what? December 26, 2017, ScienceAlert.com, gaming disorder, that is your dependence on the machine, may be classified as a mental health condition. And here's what it means. There is a certain point at which a hobby can become too much. The World Health Organization is now considering adding quote-unquote gaming disorders to the list of mental health conditions in its next update of the International Classification of Disease, according to a beta draft of the document. The 11th version of the more affectionately known ICD, and then its International Classification of Disease, is not yet set, but the addition would be a recognition that a pastime can become problematic if it leads to a form of addictive behavior. Specifically, the draft's language states that gaming behavior could be a disorder if it meets three characteristics. That would be: 1, if a person loses control over their habits; 2, if they start to prioritize being on the computer over many other interests and activities; and number 3, if they continue playing despite clear negative consequences. And that would be any computer interaction. Sitting is worse than smoking. This would add gaming to a list of other behaviors that can become problematic if people lose control, including gambling or disorders related to the use of substances like alcohol, marijuana, caffeine, or nicotine. Gaming covers any activity from playing 2 dots on your iPhone to sitting in front of a custom-built gaming PC for hours. And putting that category of activities on a list would give doctors and mental health professionals a way to officially diagnose someone with the condition. But to be clear, this doesn't mean that all gaming is addictive, or it could lead to a disorder only if the behavior is severe enough to result in a significant impairment in personal, family, social, educational, occupational, or other important areas of functioning, like they're doing to our children by giving them machines when they are prepubescent and much more susceptible to dopamine's effects. In other words, it has to be intense enough to harm personal relationships or interfere with schoolwork or home life. And the psychology community has been debating whether gaming is addictive enough to be described as a disorder for some time. So far, the American Psychiatric Association has declined to classify gaming addiction as a disorder, but also says that it merits further research. Well, of course they do, because they don't want to ban something that is such a wonderful brainwashing tool for them and a control mechanism to get you sucked into the machine. But part of the problem is how to distinguish simply between spending a lot of time playing games and an actual addictive behavior. Well, that would be via an fMRI. Scientists need to establish a clear-cut distinction between someone who may use games excessively but not problematically and someone who is experiencing significant impairment in their daily lives as a consequence of their excessive gaming. There are plenty of stories about individuals whose gaming behavior has become problematic, and that's like all my friends who have children that are teenagers. People who have gotten so caught up in online games that they have ruined relationships or lost a job or can't do anything around the house or have any type of relationship. Compulsive gaming and problematic substance abuse also go hand in hand. But problematic gaming may also serve as a dysfunctional coping mechanism for some. And what I have to think about is, as they put the whole world on universal basic income and nobody has a job anymore where they could feel useful or use their creativity, how do you think they are going to pass the time? But in some place that they can escape, where the world is a lot happier, and where they can utilize their minds to maybe problem solve, which is something they're not going to be doing, sitting around home with nothing to do. And this is going to create a whole new generation of children who have been trained to be dependent on the machine through their educational system to have some sort of dependency that then can be fixed via some future mental health intervention. And that's where I want to get to next, because this caught my attention. This came out of ScienceAlert.com. Scientists have now found where nicotine addiction can be blocked in the brain. And this is that same area that pushes that dopamine button and gives you that boost. The neurons that keep us hooked. Brain researchers have pinpointed a small group of brain cells that are especially responsive to nicotine, and which might be the main culprits driving addiction to the substance. By tweaking these neurons in mouse brains, scientists were able to curb nicotine addictions in animals, and not only have their results solved an important piece of the nicotine addiction puzzle, but they could also lead us toward new treatments for the problem. Now, if you remember, part of the 21st Century Cures Act was also looking at addiction in the brain, because we have this opiate addiction problem, all fueled by the poppy fields in Afghanistan in the United States. And because it is so cheap, it is getting into our kids' hands and causing an epidemic like we have never seen. A team of researchers led from the Rockefeller University have been digging around brain chemistry to identify a potentially new drug target that could help curb the addiction. They focused on two small brain regions located in the midbrain, and that is the evolutionary older parts of vertebrate brains, which many of the brain features share with mice. These two interconnected regions are known to be involved in drug dependence, and they also contain receptors that nicotine binds to once it enters the bloodstream and crosses into the brain. Using mice that have been drinking nicotine-laced water for 6 weeks, the researchers found that chronic exposure to nicotine actually changes a group of neurons that they dubbed the amigo 1. These cells release two different neurotransmitters that are blunt, and they blunt the signal to the hablinula, which is a part I don't know of. If you've ever been exposed to nicotine over a long period, you produce more of the signaling disruptor chemicals, and it desensitizes you. And that is an important clue that is going to help us come up with medication that can curb nicotine addiction by changing how our brains respond to it. They replaced the nicotine-hooked mice in an environment where the animals could choose whether to hang out in a chamber where they previously got their fix or in another area that they are calling the conditioned place preference. Yes, they're doing reconditioning. And sure enough, the mice whose amigo 1 neurons were silenced. And yes, when they silence neurons, that's what they were using optogenetics for. That's when they genetically modify neurons to flip a switch to turn them on or off. The mice whose amigo 1 neurons were silenced did not show a nicotine preference, while their addicted kindred kept coming back to the chamber for more. So what are we going to do about addiction? We're going to start silencing brain neurons and make this something that is healthy for you to be able to cure you of your mental disease, now that addiction is called a disease. All right, so now as we dig more into the brain, intelligence, this is part of Futurism.com, November 25th, 2016. Intelligence may actually stem from a basic algorithm that they have found in the human brain. The human brain is the most sophisticated organ in the human body. The things that the brain can do and how it does them have even inspired a model of artificial intelligence. But now a recent study published in the Journal of Frontiers in Systems Neuroscience shows how human intelligence may actually be a product of a basic algorithm. This algorithm is found in the theory of connectivity, which is a relatively simple mathematical logic that underlies our complex brain computations, according to researchers, a neuroscientist at the Medical College of Georgia at Augusta University and co-director of the Augusta University Brain and Behavior Discovery Institute, named Joe Tizian. He first proposed the theory in October of 2015. Basically, it is a theory about how the acquisition of knowledge, as well as our ability to generalize and draw conclusions from them, is a function of a billion neurons assembling and aligning. We present evidence that the brain may operate on an amazingly simple mathematical logic. This theory describes how a group of similar neurons form a complexity of clicks to handle a basic idea or information, and these groups cluster into a functional connectivity motive which handles every possible combination of ideas, and more clicks are involved in more complex thoughts. And in order to test it, Tizian and his team monitored and documented how the algorithm works in 7 different brain regions, each involving in handling basics like food and fear of mice and hamsters. And the algorithm represented how many clicks are necessary, which is a power 2 based permutation logic, according to the study. They gave the animals various combinations of 4 different foods, which would be a rodent biscuit, a pellet, rice, and milk, and using electrodes placed at specific areas of the brain, they were able to listen to the neurons' response. And the poor little mousies had them implanted. The scientists were able to identify all 15 different combinations of neurons and clicks that responded to the assortment of food combinations, and as the theory of connectivity would have predicted. Furthermore, these neural clicks seem pre-wired into the brain, and they appeared immediately as soon as the food choices did. Well, if the intelligence in the human brain and all of its complexities can be summed up by a particular algorithm, imagine what that means for AI. It is possible then for the same algorithm to be applied to how AI neural networks work, as these mimic the brain's structural wiring. So where does this take us? Well, listen to this. I couldn't believe when I ran across this story. This is from yesterday, December 27th, 2017, out of the Cointelegraph, which is a financial publication, The Future of Money. Bitcoin mining can now power neuroscience, says Matrix chief AI scientist. At this year's Block Show Asia, Yang Dong Deng, a chief AI scientist of a blockchain startup called Matrix, explained how inserting artificial intelligence into the blockchain ecosystem would make it possible to use Bitcoin mining computational power for scientific innovation. Now, where do we hear about this before? Oh, in Singularity.net and some of Ben Goertzel's projects. He was looking at making that, whatever it was called, Singularity coin or something, and making their own exchange for artificial intelligence. And he wanted to use that to power AI to get more intelligent. Well, according to Deng, the current computing power being used in Bitcoin mining operation is 8.23 to the 10 to the 22nd floating point operations per second, while the total computing power is 1.2 times 10 to the 23 flops. According to these calculations, Bitcoin mining is consuming 17% of the total global computing power, justifying the frequent accusations that Bitcoin mining is wasteful. Matrix is seeking to reinvent mining algorithms by including AI into the equation through a Bayesian mining system that utilizes a Markov chain Monte Carlo algorithm. And because these computational functions, similarly to traditional mining functions, they will work well for Bitcoin mining. As Deng argues, using AI, which is the computing power used to verify transactions on the Bitcoin network, can be leveraged for other uses outside of the world of cryptocurrencies. One example he gave in his scientific research is a brain network simulation. And according to Deng, other important non-crypto use cases that require massive computing power are chemical reaction simulations, medical diagnoses, and complex financial modeling. Intel recently filed a patent for a blockchain-based system that also works to harness the energy used in cryptocurrency mining for scientific development, in this case particularly for genetic sequencing. It is taking over, people. The Block Show Asia conference this past November included a number of innovative projects. In addition to Matrix, there were 1,500 entrepreneurs and experts gathered at the event in Singapore to share and discover the latest developments in the industry. Now, that leads me to one that Drew Lamb sent me a few days ago. This was published December 23rd, 2017, out of the same publication, thecointelegraph.com. This is an initial coin offering, the ICO, to build the next generation AI, and that would be Singularity Net, raised $36 million in just 60 seconds. Yes, humanity is ready to sell itself out. Singularity Net raised $36 million in just 1 minute, completely selling out of its native AGI tokens, and that is their artificial general intelligence. While this is an enormous amount of money to be raised in an incredibly short period of time, it is somewhat unsurprising considering the demands, because humanity is just so greedy that they are going to sell out their brethren and the future of the human race. The company asserts that the issue was massively oversubscribed, with 20,000 people registered to participate, seeking to buy just $361 million worth of tokens. The company reduced the number to a more manageable level, according to its press release, by screening all applicants using layers of algorithms, in addition to manual review to comply with global regulations. This reduced the pool of contributors to only 5,000 people, but also set a new standard for fundraising via the blockchain with respect to global legislation. Singularity Net aims to create a decentralized marketplace of AIs where AI can interact with one another and pay one another as needed to solve customer problems. Founder Ben Goertzel gave an example. If you need a document summarized as a user, you can put in a request into Singularity Net, and you may get bids from 20 different document summary nodes, and you may choose one with the right balance of reputation and price. But now that document summary node, if it hits something in the document that it can't deal with, it can then outsource that. And if the document summary node that you are paying hits an embedded video, it can outsource that to a video summarizing node, and then it can pay it some fraction of money that it was paid. And it can see that a quote in Russian, it can outsource that to a Russian to English translation node that can do that translation and then send that back to the document summary node. So it could do all kinds of executions in the background and interchanges. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are, of course, hot trends in computing these days, but they are largely controlled by massive corporations such as Amazon. And these corporate titans develop their own proprietary systems and software and keep them in-house and invite organizations such as the Central Intelligence Agency to come utilize their tools. But Singularity Net intends to totally decentralize this heavily centralized field, allowing developers of AI tools to monetize them and non-corporate users to benefit from them. So we're going to democratize the takeover of the human race with intelligence that's going to become an artificial general intelligence. All right, guys, have an awesome Thursday. I hope it warms up for you. I will catch up with you